how to tell the difference between the two verb tenses can be tricky, and knowing when to use which one is even more difficult. Let's start by examining a few tricks to recognize which verb tense is which. To begin, let's look at regular verbs. In the Imparfait, you will see two words, the pronoun and the verb. In the Passe composé, you will see three words, unless two of the words have been compressed into one, such as je plus a, which would equal j'ai. This makes it slightly easier to identify the verb tense in French. Count how many words you see, including the pronoun. If it's 2, then it's imparfait. If it's 3, then it's passé composé. Here is an example. She was dancing translates as elle dansait in the imparfait. She danced translates as elle a dansé in the passé composé. Now let's look at how we know when to use which verb tense. Let's start with choice. Many times, if you are the author and you are in control of what you are writing, then ultimately the choice is up to you. For example, if you want to let the audience know that yesterday you experienced rain, you could either say it rained or it was raining. Both are grammatically correct and logical. Another example would be to say, yesterday it was freezing outside, or yesterday it froze outside. A final example would be to say, last night on TV, Céline Dion was singing. Or, last night on TV, Céline Dion sang. Things get a bit more complicated, though, when you describe something other than just a setting. If you are describing an event, you need to be more decisive. If you said to your friends, hey guys, coolest thing ever, I drank a booster juice yesterday, they would assume that your oddly exaggerated statement was complete and that your story had come to a close. However, if you said, hey guys, coolest thing ever, I was drinking a booster juice yesterday, then your friends will most likely anticipate you saying something else. By using the imparfait verb tense to describe an action, you are creating a setting for more action to happen. Let's look at a more extreme example. If your friend said, yesterday I was winning the lottery, and then paused, you would assume that your friend, although initially lucky, ended up having bad luck and somehow did not end up winning the lottery. If, however, your friend said, yesterday I won the lottery, then this means that it is a completed action and not something that could still change. Your immediate reaction would be to acknowledge the completed action with an immediate reaction, whereas in the first lottery statement you would expect your friend to say something in addition. So to summarize what we have seen so far, it is safe for us to categorize moments into either the passé composé or the imparfait. If an action is relatively short, eating a hamburger, drinking a water, blowing your nose, having a shower, buying a dress, then we put that in the passé composé. On the contrary, if an action is relatively longer, owning a dog, being 10 for an entire year, living in a city, walking to school uphill both ways, then the action is in the imparfait. However, yes, there's always a however in French, exceptions do occur. Let's examine. Let's compare similar sentences. I was talking to my friend when I died, compared to I was dying when I talked to my friend. Although seemingly similar, one sentence makes us assume that the death was much longer than in the other sentence. Read them again. I was talking to my friend when I died, compared to I was dying when I talked to my friend. In the first sentence, I was talking to my friend when I died. Because the verb talking is in the imparfait, this sets the setting. The talking is the longer action, while the death is relatively short. Perhaps the speaker was talking to his or her friend for hours when all of a sudden, out of the blue, the speaker died. It feels like the speaker was having a great conversation about Pinterest or Reddit, talking for hours with their best friend, when randomly, all of a sudden, the Grim Reaper shows up and instantly ends the conversation. Conversely, the second sentence presents a slightly different scenario. I was dying when I talked to my friend. In this sentence, because the verb dying is in the imparfait, we are presented with a scenario in which the speaker could have been dying for hours, when all of a sudden, out of the blue, he or she spoke to his or her friend. It makes it feel like the speaker was going in and out of consciousness for hours, writhing in pain, when randomly, right in the middle of dying, they pick up the phone, call their friend, chat for a short while, and then resume dying. Looking at an example which seems more vague, let's compare the sentences, he was sleeping when she called, compared to he slept when she was calling. Both present a similar scenario, but which sentence is more offensive to the caller? Let's examine. In the first sentence, he was sleeping when she called. Because the verb sleeping is in the imparfait, it implies that this is the longer action. Hence, the guy was sleeping for what could have been hours. The girl calls and wakes him up, ending his sleeping. On the contrary, he slept when she was calling, presents us with a scenario in which the phone is ringing off the hook for hours. At some point, while the phone is ringing, the guy falls asleep, takes a nice long nap, and wakes to the sound of the phone still ringing. However, I should point out that many sentences contain an imparfait, followed by the word when, and another imparfait. This would imply that both actions were occurring at the exact same time. For example, I was singing when I was dancing. I was crying when I was leaving. I was eating when I was walking. Moreover, we see sentences containing passé composé followed by the word when, followed by another passé composé. Here are some examples. I hiccuped when I jumped. I snapped my fingers when I made eye contact. I sneezed when I snapped my fingers. So although you might see the word when and say, aha, I found it, there it is, the word when. Now I know that one of the verb tenses must be the passé composé, while the other is the imparfait. This is not always the case. However, when we describe two actions occurring in the past, it is likely that not all actions occurred for the exact same duration of time, forcing you to conjugate one verb in the imparfait and the other in the passé composé. When you translate from English to French, you are forced to choose which verb tense to use, imparfait or passé composé. You are really being forced to decide which action to highlight. Fundamentally, you need to decide, if I use the imparfait, then am I purposely trying to set a setting or describe a longer action? If I use the passé composé, then am I purposely trying to describe a completed action or an action of shorter duration? Good luck! This concludes our tutorial on the differences between the imparfait versus the passé composé.